I did not spend this past week in a bubble. Although reading the news, there were moments when I wished I had. Thank God for our bishop's letter, published in our Observer and available on our website. While I will never defend the indefensible or make light of what was done and not done, I can tell exactly what the evil one is trying to do to us Christians in general, and certainly to me in particular. The evil one wants us to forget what an honor, privilege, and joy it is to be a Catholic, and especially how awesome it is to become a priest and to be cared for by one. You know, we priests are required to give you at least one day a week away from us. Right? I know a priest once told Father Beekman, "Oh, Father, I don't need a weekly day away from my parish." And Father Beekman's response was, "Maybe not, but the parish needs a day away from you." So, on your day away from me, I often go on little trips to Chicago or up to Milwaukee, and sometimes one of my favorite places to go is to the library of our nearest seminary. Now this building has the first words of our first reading over the door. Wisdom has built herself a house. It's so perfect. You see, anything worth knowing is in this library. What a feast. Rich, juicy meats and pure, choice wines. But next to the library is a feast even richer, even sweeter. The chapel, where Jesus is, not just his words in a book, but his very self. Now, today let's review the different ways that Christ is present among us. Remember, even before Mass begins, Christ is here, right? He said, "Where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there." So this is a feast in itself, right? Look around and see how many different pictures of our Lord we have here among us, right? Young, old, short, tall, healthy, infirm, all different beautiful pictures of Christ, right? Then we have another image of Christ comes among his people, the priest. As Father Kotnik is often pointing out, our Lord could have chosen angels to be his servants. He could have at least chosen the more dignified, intelligent sex among us, women, right, to be his sacramental images. Right? I knew a priest who a woman walked up to him and said, "Father, I am perfectly capable of becoming a priest." And he said, "Yes, and that's exactly why you can't be one." Right? It's not about abilities, it's about inabilities. So he chose us. He chose us men, with all the good and all the bad that means. Now, may Christ's power show forth in our human weakness. You know, I pray daily to become an ever clearer picture of Christ. Well, please join me in praying for the same. We know that Christ is also here in his word, right? He speaks when we listen, right? Whether that's to the readings, the gospel, the homily, or even reading Catholic books or listening to Catholic CDs. Right? Christ is present in those moments. And finally, most importantly, we know that he is present here in the tabernacle. This last mode of presence gives life to all the others, right? You're here because he's here, right? I'm a priest because he's here, right? And the same priest who speaks to us in the gospel is here on the altar. I think it's safe to say that we all have a favorite among these, and perhaps a least favorite, right? Maybe it's easy for you to see Christ on the altar, but harder for you to see him in your neighbor or in your priest. Or maybe some love to read the Gospels, but struggle with what to do in the Adoration Chapel. Your challenge: of these four modes, pick the one that's the hardest for you and pray about it. Say something like, "Oh Jesus, I'm struggling right now to see you in," and name it. Whatever you do, brothers and sisters, come to the feast.